From the Clock Tower, this is the C.S. Lewis Book Club. I'm Dan.
And I'm Alex. Welcome to our book club. We're on a walking tour through Middle-earth. It is not our part to master all the tides of the book, but to do what is in us, so that those who read after may have clean pages to fill.
In this episode, we'll be talking about The Lord of the Rings Book 5, the first half of The Return of the King. We're not reviewing the book, but we still might spoil it. So if you don't want that, pause here, go read, and we'll be waiting for you when you get back.
Okay. Anything about the episode that we're about to record that you think...
Feel like the thrill of Théoden charging into battle.
Yeah.
What a book.
Yeah.
Whoa.
This book was...
there was a lot of restraint being exercised to not call Alex and talk about this, but we do have one soft rule that we've developed through all of the C.S. Lewis Book Club, which is don't talk about it beforehand because we waste all like the excitement about it a little bit. Or we just forget after. We're like, oh, we talked about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's the checklist mindset where I even have to worry about this when I'm prepping for the conversation, is if I've gone over the book too many times, which might be the case for this one.
Oops.
Like the best case scenario is getting through the book the morning of the recording, like for the first time. So everything's fresh on my mind and I haven't said anything to anybody about it yet.
I had the thought when I finished the book, this was 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, but I thought I should drive to Alex's house tonight. Like I'm so lit up about this. We should do it. I feel you on that.
Yeah, you had said that, and I didn't give it the fanfare I think it deserved. That last book was the one where where it really gripped you.
Yeah,
in the way that is kind of, I mean, not so secretly. This is my whole plan. This is my secret ploy, for this book club, is to get you as excited about these books as I am.
Works every time.
And it's funny because I think, oh, I love these books so much. And no, there's another level. When I read them again, it's like, oh, I didn't know I could go there. It's kind of like a beautiful relationship, right? Hopefully that you have with your spouse, where you think you love them as much as possible, and then
I like
different things, the birth of a child, certain things are just like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that this level of sentiment was
accessible.
Existed. It's like C.S. Lewis talking about, try to imagine a color that does not exist. Our expectations are confined to the limits of our past experiences, which means that we can't hope for, in a way, Amdir is the word in Sindarin. Anyway, we can't hope for something unless we've seen it, and that's going to be some of the conversation today, is the nuance of hope, in the way that sometimes in our language we talk about love, and that word is a language in itself, where there's love and there's love. And in this episode, hopefully we'll talk about there's hope and there's hope.
I think this episode's getting Alex poetic. Watch out.
Hopefully not too much, but I did a deep dive. So much of this book, especially since this book, and I've said this almost like every episode, but it was very story heavy. And so I was kind of expecting going into it that there wouldn't be a lot of depth, philosophical depth.
No.
It's almost like every
Don't you
line.
dare.
How dare you? Almost every single line is like, oh, we could talk an hour about this phrase. So hopefully we don't get too carried away, but then also talk about, what is it that Merry said about why the hobbits don't talk a lot in certain contexts, because they feel like if they talk too much, they'll almost talk past the right words. And I read that and I felt personally attacked. So anyway, the extra episode details have become almost a housekeeping for the housekeeping. But do you have any housekeeping?
No housekeeping. I know you've got some stuff, so we can jump there with the emails.
Yeah, we have a couple of emails that I've been sitting on for a while, and I just keep forgetting, and they're good emails, so I wanted to bring them up. One was from a mutual friend of ours, Dan McIntosh, and he's a listener to the podcast, and he's emailed before. And in this email, he actually asked about some things that I don't think we're capable of talking about. He brought up, I think in there was a screen capture of a tweet or something about the difference between C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, one being a Catholic, one being a Protestant, and understanding the ideologies behind both of them and how they differ and how you can see that in Tolkien. I think the line was Protestants think that pleasure is bad and Catholics think that suffering is good. And it was in reference to like the difference of them. And I just read that and thought, well, that is not true of either of these authors. If that's a stereotype to be placed on the distinction between Protestant and Catholic, as far as Protestants thinking, and this might be generally true, I don't know, it's not true of C.S. Lewis thinking that pleasure is bad.
Yeah.
Lewis calls God the hedonist God.
Yeah.
And everything is about pleasure and desire.
All good things come from God.
That's right. And so it's, and then even Tolkien about suffering being good, there might be some truth to that with a little asterisk about what's the suffering for. I'm thinking of the Rangers laboring so that there is peace in the Shire. And as far as an underlying theme in The Lord of the Rings, what's it all for? And it's for the Shire. It's so that comfort can exist.
Those places can exist.
Comfort can short circuit your access to more comfort. You think of the Epicurean idea of everything being about pleasure, and so kind of moderate your pleasures a little bit so they don't rob future pleasures. The present robbing the future is a theme in this book. But the reason for all of this, especially from the perspective of Tolkien and Lewis talking in The Bird and the Baby, with a pint of strong beer and cold beef, and it's the pleasures. They loved the small creature comforts and the pleasures. They just weren't willing to sacrifice goodness for them because they were the byproduct of greater meaning, like the pursuit of happiness. If you pursue happiness,
that was exactly where
go for it. Then go with it.
No. Just there's actually a word for it when you want to pursue.
I've heard it called obliquity.
But I don't know that one.
Oh, obliquity is just things that are kind of on the periphery of your focus. That happiness, and this is kind of a Viktor Frankl thing, that if you pursuit of happiness will not lead to happiness, it will lead to selfishness and kind of a version of greed and ultimately failure. Happiness is the byproduct, or I've heard it called the ensuit of happiness, whereas you focus your aim on something, I don't want to say grand or lofty, but I do want to say it's something meaningful, true, good, beautiful, then happiness will happen to you as a byproduct.
Okay.
So if you have that understanding, then yes, that is Tolkien and Lewis's full aim, is that joy is the measure of our existence and will be the end thereof. If we stop worrying about how joyful we are and maybe try to clear the earth of its evil.
Root out the evil in the field that you know.
Yeah. So that others may have clean earth to till. Anyway, hopefully that addressed that email.
There you go, Dan.
He also was hopeful that we will do an episode because we're not doing very many episodes and these books deserve more episodes. And yes, we could do an episode about every chapter and even multiple about every chapter, but we've confined ourselves to an episode per book, which is 2 episodes per volume. And as an intentional limitation on what we're doing. And it hurts us.
And we might come back and end up doing other stuff.
Sure, exactly. But so that there's an intentional limitation. But we will do an episode after Dan has watched the movies and see what his experience was.
That's going to be fun.
And then Emily Olson, she's also a fan of the podcast. She's given us a voice memo, I believe, in the past seasons. So thanks, Emily, for being a loyal contributor. She wanted to talk about Arwen and Éowyn, and the movies give time to Arwen that the books really don't. And she just wanted us to talk about that a little bit, that this story is an Éowyn story. It's not an Arwen story. And what it reminded me of is the movie La La Land. Have you seen that? It's pretty good. The music's great. Pasek and Paul. They La La Land has this very classic rom-com back and forth, or this love story of a potential couple. Well, they are a couple in part of it, and it's Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. And at the end, spoiler alert for a movie that you probably didn't know you would get a spoiler for, they don't end up together. And I remember watching the movie.
Does Boromir die? No, I think people listening are going to wonder if I ever watch movies, which I do, but apparently not the ones we bring up.
Yeah.
We keep going.
Feature
Sorry.
films for families or something. So I remember watching it with a group of people, and especially the women being really upset that they don't end up together. And there's this scene at the end. It's really beautifully done, and the Emma Stone character comes with her husband to watch Ryan Gosling perform, and he's kind of reached this goal that he's had, and it's even the goal that kind of pushed her to the side. But he plays this ballad of the story of kind of their life, and it does this kind of artistic montage of their story. And even though they're not together, there's this like beauty to it. It almost feels like this tragedy that they didn't end up together, but she's there with her husband. Her husband's played by, I'm not sure if he has a name in the movie, but it's Guy Patterson from That Thing You Do. And the truth is, we want this couple to be together because we saw their story. They were presented to us uninterrupted for more than 2 hours, and we're going to have our sentiments go with some other dude that we didn't. But the truth is, that character, all we know about him is he didn't treat her poorly like the Ryan Gosling character did. That's all we know. And so it helps, I think it's instructive to see how much our sentiments, our emotions, our alignments can be commandeered by a good story. And be careful when you're hearing Éowyn's story to realize, no, Arwen's got her story, and it's impressive in a way that I don't even think we have a way to understand. You get a little bit of it in the appendices. I just think being aware of our subjectivity, the subjectivity of the information that is being presented to us, can win us over in a way that if we then allow it to make the decisions that should be rooted in objectivity, we will be steered in the wrong direction because of our flighty, ephemeral human sentimentality. And so that's the lesson. The lesson.
That's the lesson.
This is Éowyn's story. Aragorn's part in that, he handles it honorably, but I do think that there is kind of this sub-lesson that married men just can't have female friends.
Oh my God.
Is that fair? Not unless it's through and with their wives. Or...
We're going there in housekeeping. All right.
Sorry, I need to pontificate a lot right now, so I get it out of the way so that we can turn it over mostly to you during the meat of the episode, chapters.
No. Thank you, Emily, for your email.
Yeah, we really do enjoy that.
Awesome.
Getting feedback. It does feel, I mean, the room that we're in is kind of this, it's not stuffy. There's airflow.
I love this room.
But it is this
spend a lot of time
small closed space that kind of makes us feel just like two dudes talking about our emotions.
That's what I still feel like this is.
And to hear other people's takes is really encouraging.
Awesome. Yeah.
So thank you. Thanks, Dan and Emily.
All right. Should we go to the summary?
Yeah.
Alex wrote one of my favorite summaries he's ever done. He thinks it's too long. I think it's awesome. So there's a lot of story, and you somehow compacted it into a very concise summary. So
I appreciate it.
Hit it.
Yeah, I had a lot of time. Usually I write this just before we start, but I had more time to stew on it. So here we go. Pippin rides to Minas Tirith and pledges his service to Lord Denethor, Steward of Gondor, while Merry stays with the Rohirrim, pledging his service to King Théoden. Aragorn looks in the palantír in open challenge to Sauron, and with the remaining fellowship and the new arrivals of his Dunedain brethren, takes the paths of the dead to call on the Oathbreakers to fulfill their oath to him as Isildur's heir. At Osgiliath, Faramir is grievously wounded and falls under the Black Breath, and the host of Mordor advances on Minas Tirith. Denethor, having lost all hope, attempts a ritualized murder-suicide of his son upon the pyre. But Faramir is saved by the decisive actions of Pippin and his companion guard Beregond, and Denethor burns alone. Upon the Pelennor fields, battle commences in earnest, and Théoden and the Rohirrim come riding to the defense of Minas Tirith. But Théoden is crushed beneath his own horse, Snowmane, felled by a dart of the Witch King of Angmar, Lord of the Nazgul, of whom it was foretold that no man could hinder. But he is vanquished by no man indeed. Merry, a hobbit, and Éowyn, shield maiden of Rohan, slay the Witch King, though both are mortally wounded. Meanwhile, Aragorn has emerged from the paths of the dead, with the Oathbreakers bound to his service, and he commandeers the fleet of the corsairs of Umbar, and comes up Anduin to the Pelennor, arriving just in time to turn the tide of battle. He heals Faramir, Éowyn, and Merry with the healing hands of the rightful king, and leads a scant army to the Black Gate in a feint to draw the eye of Sauron away from Frodo and the Ring.
All right, so my theme that I saw over and over in this book was what is greatness, and you see, I love how you have all of the depth of all of these characters and stories that has just been built over this whole series, and now you're seeing it all come to a head as they all come into this battle from their different stories and how they engage with this idea of inevitable defeat. And Tolkien just does such a brilliant job to set this whole thing up in a way where you're like, they really are going to lose. and to feel from each character what losing is going to mean for them with their story. And he plays it out. It's such a long battle with so many parts to it. And it's so good. So excited to talk about that theme.
I have a couple of themes, and even labeling was difficult. First off, I guess the theme title that I had was The Traditions of Our Fathers, and how scripturally that term is used both positively and negatively. And I think that's applicable to the juxtaposition of the comparisons of characters specifically in this book. And then two memes came to mind. One was the penguin meme, and how the penguin is not a nihilist penguin. And so it's called the nihilist penguin.
That's an assumption.
Right. That's my projection.
Joke.
And yet you could say that Denethor is looking at the penguin as a nihilist, and Théoden is looking at the penguin as a transcendental idealist, if those mean anything to you. And then the other one is the which way Western man meme of the fork in the road, and how are you going to make that decision with that dichotomy? But because I feel like so much of the moral of this book is Éowyn's story, and it gets hidden to the point where I think the movies even miss it. And so
an indictment,
and maybe intentionally, and maybe with some, I would call cowardice, but some security to avoid a difficult question about a Western woman's role. Dare I use that term? And thinking of Mulan, the cartoon versus the live action, and maybe that's the dichotomy of how we see the character and the role that Éowyn plays in this book. And we won't really get the fullness of it until next book. So, teaser again.
Are you teasing me with the Mulan reference, or are we going to go there later?
We'll go there. There.
Cool.
I'll bring it up because I need to bring it up. Otherwise, it's just this is a third rail situation, right? Talking about how women should be from the conversation of two dudes. And I'm going to try to be less of a coward in talking about that subject. And And but as far as a theme that kind of goes throughout, it's involved in that dichotomy is this term. It's a phrase in the book, the hope unlooked for. And this is where I want to kind of dissect that term hope and use a word that Tolkien made up for in Sindarin called estel. And it's a particular type of hope that maybe is more accurately defined as trust. And I'll bring up some fun nuances and connections to other Tolkien works with that. And yeah, I'll stop talking about
Are you getting carried away?
I'm getting carried away. I'm sorry. So anyway, but before break, any just immediate C.S. Lewis allusions in this book?
I think there was a quote that I came across with C.S. Lewis that, for me, had application to this. It was from the Four Loves. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will certainly be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give your heart to no one, not even to an animal. Wrap it up carefully around with hobbies, little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock yourself in a room with your son with burning sticks. This quote really hit at everyone participating in this story, all of the great ones. They loved something beyond themselves, and it's what allowed them to ride the path to the end of hope. It allowed them to be great in a situation where most men or women quail. So I liked that quote by C.S. Lewis and how it applied here.
Yeah, the price of love is the pain of loss.
Yeah. I want to love that way. I want to love in a way that it might drive me to my grave, but that's what love is to be okay with that.
Yeah. Bravery is being willing to feel that pain, right?
Yeah.
This is something that my wife sent me. This is a quote from C.S. Lewis that kind of applies here. It's from one of his letters. And it says, "It is one of the evils of the rapid diffusion of news that the sorrows of all the world come to us every morning. I think each village was meant to feel pity for its own sick and poor, whom it can help. And I doubt if it is the duty of any private person to fix his mind on ills where he cannot help. A great many people now seem to think that the mere state of being worried is in itself meritorious. I don't think it is. We must, if it so happens, give our lives for others, but even while we're doing it, I think we're meant to enjoy our Lord and, in him, our friends, our food, our sleep, our jokes, and the bird's song and the frosty sunrise."
Whoa.
And
maybe I think C.S. Lewis just knew that I was getting a little too much on the Tolkien train, and you had to hit me with that quote. We're coming home, buddy.
Yeah, you can see, if you remember from Screwtape Letters, he brings in that attitude. And I even think it's true even when you can do help on the other side of the world, or for people outside of your village. It still is within your stewardship, using that word intentionally. It's your stewardship to take care of first those in your stewardship. So anyway, applicable lines. I also had the connection to Malacandra's speech to, I don't know if it's a speech, but talking to Weston at the end of Out of the Silent Planet. The Oyarsa of Malacandra talking to Weston. And one of the things that he says is that the dark Archon of Thulcandra, our dark Oyarsa, has made us smart enough to see death coming, but not smart enough to endure it. And another thing that he says is that we spend our time flying from something we know will overtake us in the end. And that's kind of a sickness of our world. And you can see that playing out through this book. And then Paralandra and the Temptation of Tinadril, which I think is why that book, if you want to have a clearer understanding of what Éowyn's going through, I think Tinadril's trial is very similar to Éowyn's trial. So
I don't know why this idea popped in my head. I think a really cool comment that you just made of what if when we this might be weird and you might cut it out, but like, what if when we went to bed with the idea of dying, of going to sleep? And if you ended every day with that thought in your mind of like, okay, I'm going down, I'm going to sleep. I'm like, if this is the end, with a kind of mindset that would put you in as like, what would I want to say to God if this was like my last mortal moment? And if you went through this process and every day you woke up with the gratitude of, okay, you gave me another day, like, to me, I could just think of this really virtuous cycle that would create it in like a mindset that would be super healthy.
Yeah.
Be cool.
That's cool.
I'm not doing that. I
am doing that.
Okay, cool. Whatever. You wake up with death. Sorry, that's maybe an inside joke. It's weird.
Wake up with rebirth, go to bed with death, right?
Yeah.
Well, with that, let's die a little right now. And hopefully we come back.
We'll be back.
See you in a bit.
Hi, my name is Theo, and I have a podcast called The Theo Show, where me and my dad talk about interesting things we're learning and try to understand them better. It's a short, fun podcast for kids and parents to enjoy together. And if you like learning new things in a simple way, this podcast is for you. So after this episode, go check out The Theo Show on Spotify or Apple Podcast. See you there!
Okay, welcome back. I believe the term, you just said that what we're going to do is send it.
Send it.
Yeah. Let's just send it.
It's been the theme of this entire podcast. It's been, just send it. See what happens.
I hope it arrives. It's kind of like is it a courier pigeon? Carrier pigeon? What are those called? Messenger pigeon.
Carrier pigeon.
Carrier pigeon. Messenger pigeon? No, yeah. Anyway, I'll have these ideas and I don't even have the words to express them.
Yeah, how many people it arrives for? No idea. But occasionally, like someone will, friends, whatever, I'll be out somewhere and they'll be like, oh yeah, you said this on the podcast. I'm like, what? Like,
isn't that weird?
It's always shocking.
That's such a weird experience because it almost feels like another me. It doesn't feel like, yeah. Anyway.
And then I started thinking about, man, there's a lot of content out there now. It's just floating around.
Yeah, there are. And we're adding to the, endless.
I mean that like, I was talking to my kids the other day and they were like, oh, what if you die, Dad, whatever. And I was like, well, if you ever want to know what Dad really cared about, I was like, there's a lot of like, you'd have my podcast. And the kids were like, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome? I mean, weirdly, I can't think about it too much because then it becomes this like self, whatever. But it is great. So much of our candid thoughts about deep topics have been captured on this podcast. And so even just as almost like this, like it, I almost feel like writing a journal is silly compared. Like this is what I want my kids to know and what I want in the books I want them to be reading and what my thoughts. And so thanks to all the listeners for giving us this excuse to do this. And also, if this is a carrier pigeon, if this is a pigeon that we're sending out into this fray of endless content, stuff like emails and voice memos are a way to say message received. So, but if you don't, we're going to still do it anyway, I guess.
Correctly and widely accepted term, carrier pigeon.
Carrier pigeon, thank you.
While courier makes logical sense.
It's almost as if we had
shocked.
It's almost as if we had all of human knowledge at our fingertips.
Hey, I was protecting your ego on that. It does make logical sense.
Yeah, I worry about that.
Logic.
It is far too validating. That's one of the reasons I avoid using it.
Yeah. Where are we starting?
We're starting with just the beginning of the book. We're in the mind of Pippin, and I think that's a good place to put our minds as well, that we are the hobbits. And as far as the audience of these books, it's appropriate and intentional that we identify with the hobbits, especially Pippin, who is the resident child of the fellowship. And he's waking up and he's traveling. It's the smell of hot horse, smell of hot self. And he's kind of confused. He's just a spectator in a lot of ways. And we're seeing his process of coming out of being a spectator, and he doesn't disappoint, right? But there's this thing that he does that I think applies to other criticisms of these books that I think are unfounded personally, where Gandalf is talking to him and he kind of gets carried off in thought. Or no, he's watching Gandalf and Denethor talk. And then he just starts thinking, where did Gandalf come from? And then we get a little bit more insight into Gandalf as a character, mid-story plot point of a conversation that's really important. And it almost seems like this weird aside that's taking you out of the programmed flow of a story. I think the term is that it says that Pippin was musing on this idea of where did Gandalf come from. And there's also this description. So like while he's on the horse and they're passing the landscape, Tolkien will give you like a history of that part of the landscape while you're going by. And if you're just you're just reading it thinking, okay, get to the next plot point, I'm invested in the story, you're missing a huge part of the beauty of this mythology, which is history is rich and there's reasons behind people's motivations that have to do with their own heritage, their names, their landscape, their cultures, why the Rohirrim are horse riders and why it would have been good if Gondor had taken up that tradition a little bit. And it all makes sense if you let yourself go with the stream of consciousness of the characters and Tolkien's brilliant way of writing about things in the way that our minds work. We're being brought into an experience. And this is, I think, what C.S. Lewis meant when he talked about the Calormenes, especially through Aravis, being taught in the ways of telling stories, and how English boys and girls are taught how to write essays, where the difference is I've never heard anybody who wanted to read the essays, but everybody wants to hear the stories. This is the story that I want to hear. I want to hear a story that totally immerses me in more than just plot lines and essay points.
I like when it talks about how, maybe this is with Merry, but he's with the Rohirrim and he says he had no use to the company and he doesn't piece, and it says that he didn't quite know what's going on. But I thought it was cool that the kings and the great people around him keep seeing greatness in him, even though he doesn't even feel like he knows what's going on. And I think that's very relatable as far as it goes back. I think this is just a theme that Tolkien tries to bring us back to over and over. And the quote you just read by C.S. Lewis, this rooting evil out of your own field, about doing the good that you can do within your stewardship. And that every single time these great men, when they saw Merry, when they saw Pippin in these situations, they comment on how it was uniquely inspiring, how this little halfling, this little person shows up to this battle fully committed, even though from the outside, everybody's perspective is they're not going to actually have like a real impact on this. It's just cool that you showed up with like with the will to like sacrifice and participate in this, and how inspiring that is, and how inspiring it can be for us that even if we don't feel like we're having an impact. I feel like that's a common feeling I have, is I'm not having enough of the impact that I think I should be having. That there's value in having your heart in the right place and just showing up to do your little part, and like that can be enough, and it can inspire people around you to want to be in that battle and participate.
Yeah, neither of them really help in the way that they could have expected, but they were only capable of helping in the way that they didn't expect because they did what was expected.
Yeah.
Right? Is they set themselves up for being useful, even though the only way they could do that was something that was conspicuously not useful.
Yeah.
Right. And that's oh man, too personally applicable for my comfort.
Conspicuously not useful. Is that?
That's our next
That's a t-shirt. Yeah, put that on a t-shirt. I like that.
I think then we go just as far as the chronology of the way the book's written is we're with Denethor and watching this conversation. And this is, I think, intentionally mirrored to Frodo talking to Faramir, where the logic, he sees through what the Hobbit is saying almost by seeing what he doesn't say. And so Denethor does decipher that there is somebody important that he should be worried about because of the avoidance of talking about that. And Gandalf even told Pippin not to talk about things that you don't, he gives him this list. And it's probably better that you just leave the talking to me sort of thing. But Faramir used his logic, which the book says he's a lot more like Denethor than Boromir was. So Denethor uses this logical deduction in this conversation, or in this report, basically from Pippin, as a weapon. He's like using it as like these chess pieces to fight his own battle. Faramir uses it and ultimately to aid the hobbits and even protect them from his own men, because he has a perspective on this mighty weapon that maybe he couldn't trust his own men, who were otherwise very trustworthy. Being a logician, being somebody who has that skill, I think it's an admirable skill to develop, but it's not the end of it. If you learn logic without virtue as its primary goal, it just works to make you a more clever devil.
It also seems like Denethor seems to have like some type of level of power above human. Like it talks about the way him and Gandalf are like facing off almost, where there's a battle going on that's beyond just what human ability is. Don't you get that sense?
Yeah.
And where's Denethor getting that?
He's of the line of Numenor through the line of Anarion, who's the brother of Isildur, who they're the kings that were brought that left Numenor. Elendil is the father of Isildur and Anarion. And so the stewards are from a noble house. They're just not Isildur. His line. That's Aragorn. So they have Numenorian blood, and Numenorians were given gifts for their virtuous deeds in the past to live long, 3 times the age of men. And you can see it sticking with Aragorn's line a little truer. He's like 87 in this book, and but still seems like a youngish man. So there is a noble blood in him. And in Boromir and Faramir, there's even a little more, because we learn of Imrahil, who is their uncle. So Imrahil's sister, Fenduilas, was the wife of Denethor, and she passed, I believe, and I'm not exactly sure how she died, but Fenduilas is from this other line that even has elvish blood in it. So does that answer? Was I able to get the name Fenduilas right?
I was just, I'm very impressed with your ability to recall this stuff. Let's see. You've got a note here about Pippin enjoys Bergil's company, talking to kids like peers. Yeah,
so Bergil is a kid. He's like 9, I think, or something. So Bergil is the son of Baragond, and Baragond's the guard that is kind of assigned to help Pippin. Bergil is one of the few kids that's stuck around because all the other kids have been sent away to protect them.
He doesn't want to get sent off.
And he doesn't want to
do something.
So there's already this like nobility in him, this desire to be part of the action that you see in the hobbits as well. So Bergil is already kind of presented to us as being this kid who's got courage in him, right? And it says that Pippin really enjoyed his time with Bergil more than anybody else, so that he had since Merry. And I think that there's something instructive about the way that Pippin interacts with Bergil. He talks to him like a peer, and even brings Bergil up to, well, you're a kid, so this kind of aggressive way that you're even jokingly interacting with me, you're going to get it back then. And there's Bergil's kind of shocked that Pippin calls himself wicked, and he's a little shocked even that Pippin's returning that same sort of playful aggression to him. And I think what it does is it helps build this trust. And there's just kind of this brief glimpse of a fun relationship. And it happens because, well, there's an innocence to children. But if you just go down to their level of innocence, you'll just become a little more childish, I think. But if you help bring children up in the way that you talk to them, you can enjoy their company. C.S. Lewis talked about lamenting his inability to enjoy the company of children. And I think it was his challenging of that brought children to his home during the war and led to the Chronicles of Narnia, where he follows these kids that were based on children who lived in his house.
I didn't know C.S. Lewis had a hard time with kids.
Yeah, he just said that he felt uncomfortable with kids, and he saw that as a defect in his own personality. So you can see that even through his confronting of that shortcoming is how we got Narnia. I mean, you listen to the conversation and the interactions of Pippin and Bergil, and it kind of just makes you smile as you're reading it, right?
I like that. Would it be too early to bring up Aragorn looking in the stone?
No, do it.
Well, what I think is cool about this, I think as the story starts, I don't know if I can say that Aragorn like comes into himself. Like, I feel like when he was questioned why he looked in the stone, and his response is like, I am one who has enough power, wisdom to know when like that this is the right thing. And then he kind of has a line where he kind of steps back. He's like, or at least I assess that I do, or something.
Yeah.
But what I love about it is like the importance of knowing our identity. We talk about scripturally, children of God, and how important it is that you know your identity. But the follow-up question for me is, well, so what? Okay, that's true. But where do I use that? Like, where like what door is that opening with this key that I have of my identity? And what I like is it enabled him to confront Sauron in the moment that he felt like it would benefit them, and in the way that it would turn the tides, and he was able to assess that and stand up and kind of like own his birthright as he stood before him, and know with confidence that he was able to do that. And so I'd like to hope that if I really have it, if I'm truly connected to my true identity, that it would help me do that with evil in my life, that I would know where I can assert that power and stand up and be the king. So that was inspirational for me when he talked about it.
Yeah, it's especially with how Aragorn confronts the threshold of fear. Because what you're talking about makes me think of this dilemma that I think everybody who's trying to listen to the whisperings of the Spirit experiences. How do I know when it's divine or when it's my own voice? And I think watching how Aragorn does this, and in kind of a humorous way through the eyes of Gimli, as they are going on the paths of the dead, and how Aragorn is reminded that that's kind of what he needs to do. He gets a message from the sons of Elrond that's kind of, hey, if you're this guy who's been prepped in secret to be this returning king, then you know what you need to do. Look to the paths of the dead. And he's kind of stewing on this for a while. You can tell there's allusion that while we've been learning about other people's experience with this part of the story, Aragorn's been struggling with something. He decides to finally look in the palantír when he realizes who he is and makes a decision, a decisive action before there's any real proof. There's a line that he looks up toward the paths of the dead when they're in Dunharrow, and he looked down, and it says that he was less troubled, like he had made this decision. I'm terrified of this. He looks up. He's decided that he's going to go that way because it's his responsibility, it's his duty as the returning king to do this thing that was foretold by, and there's even a history of this foretelling. The returning king will go on the paths of the dead or call on the oath breakers. And as soon as he realizes I'm going to be doing that, he almost like realizes that in himself, that he is who it was foretold of by his own decisiveness. He looks up and he's just not troubled anymore. It reminded me of Ransom and Perelandra, deciding that he would do the impossible. And by this time tomorrow, and it's almost like this covenant. It doesn't take away your agency. It allows you to make choices that you thought were beyond your ability because you yielded that choice to a duty, which is your connection to this higher power. And then he goes through the paths of the dead. And Gimli even has this thought, does he have no fear? Because Gimli is a dwarf. They're a hardy bunch by their race, and he is an especially hardy version of them. So he's like at the top of these rungs of these like you want to find somebody who's not afraid to do difficult and scary things. It's Gimli. And he's just amazed by Aragorn's ability to just pass through this threshold of fear, almost as if he's not afraid. And we know that that's not true about him. But from Gimli's perspective, it looks like it. But look what fear does to Gimli. Fear, he's constantly bargaining with this, should he even be here, go on this? And it's like, because of that, he ends up at the back, the rear of this company. And the dead guys are like following from behind. So his bargaining with it and not making this decisive decision, not making this covenant, not deciding to go, just creates a situation where he's experiencing more of what he's trying to escape. It's the self-defeating cowardice.
Yeah, I think that's great.
So it's like, I don't know when the Holy Spirit is whispering to me or if it's my own thoughts, but I do know what is good. And I do know what my responsibilities within my stewardship are. Maybe I should just do that thing. And then in retrospect, maybe it will be clear, but it never really needs to be. I don't need to know that I made the right decision.
I'm thinking about your last line. I don't need to know that I made the right decision. Just that maybe I spend too much time worrying about if I made the right decision. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's there was a story I read in a book once about a man talking to he was like a pastor, and he was talking to his sister at the end of life and saying that he actually didn't have the faith that he feels like he communicated to his congregation for so many years. He almost felt guilty. And she reminds him that, well, did you do the things a faithful person would do? And he said, yes. And it's like, well, then who cares about your self-assessment? You know, that reminds me of Ransom saying, how often are we asked to give an assessment of ourselves? And it doesn't really matter. What you think about yourself is a lot less important than the amount of mental space it takes up.
Yeah.
Be decisive, do a thing, and don't let fear inhibit you from crossing through the paths of the dead, from your destiny. And your destiny, maybe you're not the king that's returning. I mean, I wasn't the prophesied king, but maybe I'm a hobbit. And if I go about doing this duty that seems way above me, who knows? Maybe I'll be useful in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. And from the moment Aragorn knew that he probably needed to go on this path, like he was afraid of it because he knew that was probably his calling. And,
right.
And in the same way, like we probably know what work we should take care of today. And so if you're feeling fear, maybe that's pointing in the right direction of where you need to.
Yeah, there is a comfort in knowing that you're not anybody of consequence. It wasn't anything about Ransom himself that qualified him to be chosen by Melildil. So
yeah, no, I think that's this theme on repeat through this whole story. It's all of the hobbits, and you know, it's this. It's not always a misfortune to be overlooked. It's
right.
It's that like maybe you're not being Aragorn, you're not being someone of great importance is exactly what you have to overcome to do the thing you're supposed to do. I feel like as we're talking about this, I'm simultaneously worried that we're not going fast enough to get to like the Return of the King, but then also that we're going too fast and we're missing really good things.
I'll just bring this up, see if it takes us somewhere right before we go to another break, is Ghân-buri-Ghân.
Oh.
The Woses, right? The wild men.
Oh, yeah.
What did you learn from that? And it's interesting how much that's such a brief interaction with this guy, and then they're gone, never to be seen by any of the Rohirrim ever again. And it's like, what is it? When they said something, nobody in the company distrusted it at all. They just took it like, of course, this wild group of people was so trustworthy. What is it about? And this goes into the idea of the traditions of our fathers. This is like a very ancient, almost by its wildness, has not been modernized in the way that Rohan and Gondor have been. What do you think that there is that can be learned from that?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. So I think because the cadence of that conversation from the second they meet this guy, these people, is he continues to say things that would be offensive or wrong or whatever else. And you can tell the only thing he's saying is exactly what he means. And when you feel, I think it's good education for us. Like if you only communicate truth, and if that is my objective, anytime I talk to you, you're like, he may say something offensive, he may say something mean, but my feeling from him is that his direction is pointed at, I'm trying to communicate as truthfully as possible with you to accomplish good things. How quickly you can develop trust. And I think we try to appease, we try to placate, we try to communicate in a way that makes people feel good. But if there's dishonesty blended in that, you are not building trust with anyone around you.
Right. Yeah, Théoden even tries to like give him reassurances, and he's like, if it's not just that you'll kill more Gorgon, then I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
you know?
Like stop being a king, stop doing your like politician thing.
Just get rid of this.
Kill this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. I also, there's something else. It reminded me of a conversation we had back in C.S. Lewis book days of, and maybe it was Paralandra or Out of the Silent Planet. Just that there's these, I love it when they bring in these story elements where there's this whole people that have their own history and whatever else. It's not in the book. They come in, they have this moment, which like is crucial for the survival of the people that you're following, and then they disappear again. Once again, that just brings this anchor back to like, that's the reality of everyone's story. Every day you're interacting with someone who's just the person behind the counter, just the whoever, but they have their own deep story, and this might only be your 10 minutes with them, but they are having their own Lord of the Rings epic happening for them. And I think that gives you humility in how you interact with people. It's cool.
Yeah, as your attention is drawn to the landscape when you're riding on the back of the horse with Gandalf, let yourself drift into the depth of that seemingly peripheral stimulus.
Yeah. I think that every time I'm in the hospital for something that's happened to my kids or my family or whatever, and I look out the window and I see all the cars driving by, going to work and eating and doing whatever they're doing, and I'm sitting in here having this 48-hour moment where everything I care about is sitting in the hospital bed next to me. And it's a trippy feeling to feel like I'm having this and they're just going to work like I was yesterday, not thinking about this, you know?
What comes to mind with that, because we talked about your experience in like a stadium and how you think like that naturally. And mine is just, I have the people in other cars aren't even people sort of thing. So this is more of like, you naturally have that ability to kind of go into the story of the cavemen or of the mermaids or of, the Woses. And I have to like consciously try to empathize. I guess I'm not just as instinctively empathic as you are.
Or just weird. You're not as weird as me.
Yeah, when I'm in the hospital, I'm not thinking about the passing cars. I'm sorry. So, like, seeing the world as being all of these potential wormholes of meaning.
Too much.
It's too much, right? It's so much.
Yeah.
And I have this desire to like simplify and make everybody into a heuristic and a stereotype. And that's kind of what kept coming to mind back with Saruman and the of many colors idea. One of the phrases that comes to mind whenever I think of deconstructionism and kind of the postmodern attitude of the way to see and understand everything about somebody else's psychological experience or whatever, it is the phrase, "It's all just." Right? Oh, you're having this experience. Well, let me explain it to you. Your emotional experience is just, and then recite whatever diagnosis that I read in the DSM or that I learned in school and diminished you to that one thing. And it's crazy how our language is doing the opposite of this opening up the unknown of the thing right next to you. And because there's so much utility in shutting off the nuance to other people's experience, it's so tempting to just call everything a just. It's all just, this is the experience that you're having. Well, it's just this psychological phenomenon that you're experiencing. There, I have you totally understood. Nowhere left to seek with you. And it's interesting how these aspects of the way that this story is told that both Lewis and Tolkien do are like this little nudge. Oh, no, just because you saw the surface level of this thing, I'm going to talk to you about mermaids for a little bit, just enough for you to really be interested and then drop it forever. Just so that your mind gets programmed with this. I want
to break your mind a little bit.
Right. No, it's bigger. It's not just. It's not many colors. It's not red or blue or green. It's white, and white is deep and profound. It's infinite.
Everything. Yeah. We've said just a lot and just. Toyboat. Sorry. The other thing while you're talking was, in the same way that we try to do that to other people because it simplifies things for us. We don't have to, it won't break our mind. So we try and close off and we can adjust the world around us. But I also see that in people doing it to themselves. I'm just these things. Like
this label.
They boil themselves down and the other, man, intentionally or unintentionally, and it probably was intentionally, Tolkien was amazing. But he was teaching this to how do you see the world around you, and then also bringing it home to like how each of these characters deals with their own justs inside themselves. Bilbo was just a guy who liked to smoke his pipe and enjoy his pleasures and comforts, and wasn't somebody who goes on the adventure to the mountain. And Gandalf comes to show him he can be more and send him on this thing. And so whatever box you've put yourself in with your justs, maybe tear that down as well. Because in the same way that it applies to everyone you meet, it applies to you as well.
Yeah. And all labels are justs.
Don't just yourself.
You're not just a Baggins from Bag End.
A quick few before we go to break. I loved the line, "Morning counsels are best, the night changes many thoughts." And this is, Alex and I tease each other because I am a morning person. I wake up, my brain is clear. We tried to record one of our episodes late at night, and we've done two. One was here in the studio, one was in Hawaii. Worst episodes of my life. I had nothing to say. After 9 o'clock, don't talk to me. I'm a great listener, and I enjoy just letting my brain follow whatever you want to talk to me about. But morning counsels are best. So go ahead.
Just based on historical evidences, it seems like if Tolkien is saying that this is true, you are a Tolkien and I am a C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis liked late night conversations.
Sweet.
And maybe that's why Tolkien is conspicuously missing from a lot of the momentous late night conversations that we hear about with. Not all of them. I mean, he was present a lot of the time.
Stay up sometimes.
I was thinking about this. At night, I feel tired too, but I fight it. And it feels comfortable to fight it. It's not an uncomfortable tiredness.
For me, it feels very physiological. It's like the machine is shutting down. The fuel is done out of the tank.
This is what I think is a true comparison, and I have no evidence for it because I've only been in my own experience. But I wonder if this would help understand the different circadian rhythm types for different people. Is the type of tired I feel in the morning is painful. The type of tired I feel at night is almost like, you're gonna go through this death here soon. You better finish whatever you've started during the day. And my lack of organization means that I've got a lot of open ends on the things that I thought I was going to do, and so I get like this. I get jazzed. I get pumped. I get pontificatey. I get soapboxy. I get. I could, we're doing this kind of in the morning. We're midday-ish, but. If you think I'm pontificating now, wait till you come be in part of my friendship circles where we're staying up, burning the midnight oil, having conversations of deep things, and Dan's falling asleep and I'm just getting started. But I think the difference is this. I think we feel the same type of tired. They're just inversed. The way that you feel tired in the morning is the way I feel tired at night. Because it's not that the morning counsels you're not tired. It's just a tired with hope in it, right? Mm. And
my brain just works.
and for me, my biggest struggle is my brain doesn't work in the morning, especially considering the things that I was resolute in accomplishing the night before. And at night, I'm tired, and it's like, okay, I got to go to sleep, but this and this and this, and I write it all down, and then I look at it in the morning, and I'm like, I have no idea what any of this means. And
I have a rule.
Get it back.
I have a rule in my marriage that, like, we don't confront big problems at night. Never gonna go well. And I'll wake up the next morning and be like, that wasn't that bad of a problem. Let's sit down and talk about it. Like, not even at night. It's like, it's death. It's over.
Yeah, we may experience energy different, or sleepiness or tiredness different on the bookends of the day, but I still can't say that that's not good advice for me as well.
That's fair. All right, my other two comments are good for the next section, so Let's go to a break.
All right.
This episode is brought to you by Losing Like a Winner. Did you know that losing is a skill? I don't mean you should try to lose, or even that it's good to lose, but how you lose is what matters. Learning to lose like a winner can be even more important than winning. Nobody likes the way it feels to lose, but winners know that the bad feelings go away as quickly as you let them. Bad losers think that whatever is true about them right now will always be true, so they avoid bad feelings and trying new things if they might not win. Winners know they can get better at whatever they practice, so they aren't afraid of losing because they know losing is just another step on the way to winning. If you want to get good at something, you first have to start when you're bad at it. And even when you get better, you still won't win every time. In sports, games, or any competition, you're gonna lose a lot. So practice losing like a winner. It's okay to feel bad, but stay kind and keep your cool. And most of all, don't be afraid of losing. Acting sad or angry, or even worse, throwing a fit, makes it really hard to learn and improve. So practice this instead. When you lose and feel bad, take a deep breath in through your nose and blow it all out. Trust me, it works. Stand up straight, look your opponent in the eyes, shake hands, and say something kind, like, "Good game." Staying calm and kind, even when you feel bad, is the real mark of a winner. Losing like a winner isn't really about losing. It's about turning every loss into your next win. Okay, now back to the show.
Which way, Western woman?
Yeah, that's how I'm starting this. Before that, though,
Alex is charging into the path of death.
the paths, the paths of death.
And I might be like Gimli on this one. Might be at the back of the company.
You just got to decide, man.
Hey, I did decide to be in the company, okay? So to Gimli's credit, you really threw him under the bus.
But
I'll be Gimli, that's fine.
He's a good character. But before that, I do want to use our quoted text. And I'm going to use, we're going to do the end of chapter 5 as read by J.R.R. Tolkien himself.
Now silently the host of Rohan moved forward into the field of Gondor, pouring in slowly but steadily like the rising tide through breaches in a dike that men have thought secure. But the mind and will of the black captain were bent wholly on the falling city, and as yet no tidings came to him warning that his designs held any flaw. After a while the king led his men away somewhat eastward, to come between the fires of the siege and the outer fields. Still they were unchallenged, and still Théoden gave no signal. At last he halted once again. The city was now nearer. A smell of burning was in the air and a very shadow of death. The horses were uneasy. But the king sat upon Snowmane, motionless, gazing upon the agony of Minas Tirith, as if stricken suddenly by anguish or by dread. He seemed to shrink down, cowed by age. Merry himself felt as if a great weight of horror and doubt had settled on him. His heart beat slowly. Time seemed poised in uncertainty. They were too late. Too late was worse than never. Perhaps Théoden would quail, bow his old head, turn, slink away to hide in the hills. Then suddenly Merry felt it at last, beyond doubt, a change. Wind was in his face. Light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south the clouds could be dimly seen as remote grey shapes rolling up, drifting. Morning lay beyond them. But at that same moment there was a flash, as if lightning had sprung from the earth beneath the city. For a searing second it stood dazzling far off in black and white, its topmost tower like a glittering needle. And then as the darkness closed again, there came rolling over the fields a great boom. At that sound the bent shape of the king sprang suddenly erect. Tall and proud he seemed again, and rising in his stirrups he cried in a loud voice more clear than any there had ever heard a mortal man achieve before, "Arise, arise, riders of Théoden! Fell deeds awake fire and slaughter! Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered, sword day, red day ere the sun rises! Ride now, ride now, ride to Gondor!" With that he seized a great horn from Gudlar his banner-bearer, and he blew such a blast upon it that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns in the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain, and a thunder in the mountains. Ride now, ride now, ride to Gondor! Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind, white horse on a field of green, but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Éowyn rode there, the white horse tail on his helm, floating his speed. And the front of the first Éowyn roared like a breaker foaming to the shore, but Théoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins. And he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Oromir the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green above the white feet of his steed. For morning came, morning in a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and the terror overtook them, and they fled and died, and the hoofs of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing that was fair and terrible came even to the city.
So cool.
There is this, there's slaughter, the joy of battle. What it brought to mind was Ransom finally finding what the purpose of hatred was, that he could hate something without reservation.
Cleanse the temple.
Yeah.
What's good about it, what's inspiring about it is what are you riding towards? Like like that joy of battle of like there's a joy of battle because you've broken past the fear. It's like we know we should confront it. We're going to confront it. It's like once you're in it and you're actually like facing off, there's something so satisfying because you've overcome the inaction to action. And now it's just come what may, you're in it. And you just get to sing and go at it. There's that. Yeah, I can see a lot of joy in that.
At the very end of the book, Pippin looks at his sword and he says, "This was made for just such an hour as this."
Yeah.
And to make swords and to not accept that there is an appropriate use of swords is ignorance and folly. The righteous joy of battle is the righteous joy of purging lies from your life, from your experience, from the lives of those in your stewardship. And I think sometimes we are trying to be too kind and we let a lie stay on our tongue when it should burn off of it.
And how do you strike the balance between that and bubble poppers? People who just love coming in and trying to
stir the pot, pop the bubbles.
Yeah, I have a couple of people in my life where I don't feel like the way they're wielding truth brings peace. Am I sharing this truth with you because I believe if you were to accept this and live by it, it will bring you true joy? And if you can answer that question with how you're wielding truth, I think you probably won't go too astray.
Well, especially if you're honest with yourself as how you use truth. Because I can imagine bubble poppers saying, "Oh yeah, this will make you happy if you just stop living a lie." And then they're like, "Okay, what is this truth?" And then they give you the Green Witch's version of that there is no sun and there is no moon and you are in the caves and nothing's real. And then Puddleglum says, "Well, why does our make-believe lick your truth hollow?"
Yeah.
So the truth, it does come with, and maybe this is a good transition into that word estel. I didn't mean to get too far off on maybe is there an appropriate way to have joy in battle and listen to the speech of Théoden? And is that something really to be rallied and energized about and then go slay orcs? Yes, if they're orcs.
Yes.
You know, an orc is not really a person that you know, but is that corrupted, that poison in the mind of anybody who will lead them to corrupt others.
That was one of my favorite moments of our podcast so far with Lord of the Rings, when we were kind of debating about Faramir and killing orcs, and we finally both arrived like, no, if it's evil, then yes, you kill it.
Right.
And like killing, there is righteousness in killing evil.
Yeah.
You can use a sword on evil, assuming you've used the sword of truth on yourself.
Yeah.
And like, to at least an equal degree. Love others as you love yourself. And so the righteous king can ride to battle because he is a righteous king.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
Purged all lies from his own heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The prerequisite.
And speaking of that righteous king, there's this word. There's I don't know if you call it an essay. There's a collection of books called The History of Middle-earth. One of them, I think it's volume 9, is called Morgoth's Ring. And in it is a debate. It's called Athrabeth, Finrod, Andreth. And Finrod is an elf. Andreth is a human woman. And Athrabeth means the debate. So they're talking about, in this debate, it's like a Socratic debate. It's written, I think, intentionally, like one of the Socratic dialogues. And it really addresses this conflict of the mortality of men and the seeming immortality of elves. And there's an asterisk with the immortality of elves and what that means. And you kind of have to dive into that to really understand. But as far as the human, the man perspective of the elves, they have all of this eternal life, at least in a physical form, that you could envy or be jealous of or covet. And Finrod, the brother of Galadriel, so he's one of these ancient Noldor elves. He's one of the Noldor, and he's one of the princes. He brings up these terms for hope. There's a hope that's called Amdir, that is a looking up. That's what the word means. It means a looking up. And what it specifically is to see something that you want, hope that you can get it, aim at it and go for it. It's hope with an object. It's the hope of goal setting, right? And then there's this term estel, which is like a trust. But it's a hope that doesn't have the physical evidences. It has transcendental evidences. And he anchors this estel in Eru, or Iluvatar is the name of their god. That's not brought up a lot. But Iluvatar is the source of this hope. And there's even, Andreth even brings up, there is this group of believers of, and this is first age, so this is really ancient, of humans who believe in the old hope. And that it is that Iluvatar will be born as a man. Mm-hmm. And in that hope, that's where you can have this estel, this hopefulness. And it means that you can have this like hope unlooked for. You can go into a situation hopefully. Well, what are you hoping for? That you will have a glorious death, or that you will have a glorious victory, or that you will, and it's like, no, you're just going into it as a hopeful person. That you go through the paths of the dead. Will you die in the paths of the dead? I don't know. Maybe, possibly. All of the evidence says that probably. And it's kind of almost saying that there's a hope that is bigger than I can understand. Why would I sacrifice eternal things for temporal benefit, right? You may gain the whole world, but if you lose your soul. Now that's a phrase that only makes sense if you have this idea of life continuing beyond death. Or if you see even your future as being more than the life of your body, maybe your children. So there are even ways that you can have this hopeful life, even though the limits be beyond what you can see past your phenomenal experience into the numinous, into the transcendental. But what it does is it makes people hopeful. It gives you a hope, and you could say in Christ. That hope allows you to be useless. It allows you to engage with the hard or even impossible thing and even die doing it. And that word estel, when Aragorn was kind of being hidden by Elrond, living in Elrond's house, Elrond called Aragorn Estel. So that's his name. He is this hope, or at least that's the name. Think of all the depths of names that we've been getting through this book. And he is the hope of this returning king. And if you have just this idea, you don't know how it will happen. Even Gandalf almost seemingly doesn't know that Aragorn's going to come and stake his claim. He kind of has an inkling. He's been tutoring Aragorn in that direction, but nobody really knows how. But they just are hopeful. And because they're hopeful, they can do what seems to all evidences impossible. So Finrod, this elf, brother of Galadriel, one of the ancients, in one of the first wars of the first age, he is saved by a man, and that man is named Barahir. And for doing that, Finrod gives Barahir his ring. And that ring, which is later known as the Ring of Barahir, was passed to his son Beren, and Finrod dies protecting Beren. That Ring of Barahir and the line of Beren is passed down to Aragorn. He has the Ring of Barahir. It's the symbol of Estel. It's the symbol of this hope. And he doesn't even know how he's going to play through it. He just knows he has this heritage, this duty that's in him that maybe he doesn't feel. And he's kind of been putting it off. He's like 87 in this book.
Help being a ranger.
Maybe being a little reluctant to do the difficult thing because it's going to require that you pass through the paths of the dead. Doesn't that put everything at risk? The whole prophecy at risk? Doesn't that? Well, not if you have Estel. Not if Aragorn's there, right? And he even alludes that he might die at any part of this process. What if he did? How does he know that he's not just throwing his life away carelessly? The idea that came to mind, you have Denethor somebody who rises to the throne. Actually, it's the seat next to the throne. And it's the stewardship that's not looking for the return of the king. It's looking backwards. It's looking backwards in the way that Faramir talked of the decay of Gondor, where they're building tombs that are more grand than the houses of the living. And they're willing literally to sacrifice their children for their own glory. That is not what stewardship is. Stewardship is looking forward. And definitely, if you have no other way of thinking of it, it's obviously through your children. And if you sacrifice your children for your own comfort or glory, you are not being a just steward. Denethor has this attitude. The image that comes to mind is him walking up the steps to the throne from his little side steward seat, and doing so wanting everybody to watch him do it. So he can finally sit there. What's the point if the king's never coming back? How long do we need to pretend to just be these placeholders? And that idea of ascending to the throne, you can tell, is Denethor's focus. And if he can't, he's not going to yield to this ranger from the north. And he has that speech while he's setting the pyre ablaze. Aragorn is metaphorically ascending to the throne, and at each step there's a duty that calls him off the path of the throne that might mean that he never gets there, and he goes. And he takes another step, and then it requires that he chase after Merry and Pippin, possibly to his death, probably to his death. And then he has to go fight to defend Helm's Deep. And he'll probably die. He's taking these side steps as he's ascending to the throne, but the throne is not his focus. It's not the glory. Glory is actually secondary to the more important thing, which is the call to service, the real duty of a king. And what kind of service is that? Well, we find out what his hands are for.
This part of the book just ripped me, just tore me up.
You're right. Can you ascend to the throne while those within your stewardship are laying on the side of that ascent dying? No, the hands of a king
are the hands of a healer.
That's right. Obviously alluding to this embodiment of Iluvatar in the Old Hope.
I felt so many feelings when I read this part. I went to my LinkedIn profile, deleted everything, and just put that quote and saved it. I don't know why that was like, I just need this needs to be public. It was dumb, but
Tell me more.
Again, it's this principle of you don't get happiness or joy by pursuing happiness and joy. You don't get the throne by trying to be the king and rule over everybody. Like the hands of a king are the hands of a healer. It's the whoever is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven will be the servant. It's over and over and over. We're told, like, stop trying to gun for the thing that gives you the ego and the thing that's going to make you feel like the king of the world in the bad sense, and start planting seeds in the garden that's yours. Start being a true servant who sees their duty and what they're called to as their mission, and that they are not greater than their duty. No good king has thought that they were greater than the crown on their head. Yeah, I'm thinking of King Benjamin. I'm thinking, they're just good kings, right? So Aragorn has just finished doing this great thing. He can ride into that castle and sit on the throne and say, I saved all of you. You're welcome. I'm a great king. And what does he do? He comes in there and he ministers to Faramir, to, is it Pippin or Merry? Merry. Anyways, what he's doing is the same feeling I have when I read Christ's story and how he ministers to people. It's the same, lights me up in the same way.
Yeah, and Aragorn is not a type. Well, he's not Christ. He's a type of Christ, meaning that he's a symbolic representation in the same way that we can be.
It's instructive and maybe just in its own unique way, because he is human. Is what's his race? starts with a D.
A Dunedain.
He is a Dunedain, but he is human. He's not perfect, but yeah, so instructive.
How has Théoden, how does his ride with the Rohirrim, and from that audio clip that we used, how is he showing that same attitude? And then how is he different than Denethor?
I love, so first when Merry, sees the king kind of slumped over when he realizes they arrived too late. And it's better that they would not have come at all, right?
Yeah.
Than to have showed up late and just to watch the destruction versus just to have stayed home. They've lost all goal objective hope. There's no more this goal of winning the war anymore. Like, now that seems to be lost. And so they've run to the end of hope.
What makes Théoden then sit up straight and then call out with a voice clearer than any mortal man has ever achieved?
Well, I mean, what does he see in the heavens? It's like the Gondor like lights up.
Mm-hmm. I think that there's even intentionality in the lack of gloriousness in his defeat. He dies kind of in a humiliating way. Now he goes in there and he kills, I can't remember who it says that he kills before, but he's pretty successful in their charge. But then his horse is shot by the Lord of the Nazgul, and the horse falls on him, on Théoden, and that's what kills him. It almost seems like kind of pathetic. It would have been better if he had had a type of death similar to, there's a character, Fingolfin, who confronts Morgoth directly and even wounds him, and he dies in this really kind of glorious way. Théoden doesn't have that type of death.
And I don't think you can teach or depict the truths that Tolkien's trying to convey with this story. You can't have Aragorn without Théoden. You need to see that hope might end in your horse rolling over on you. Like, that really might be the end you're running into.
What is it about that end, though, that has Théoden say to Éomer, I will go to my fathers and I shall not now be ashamed? Like, what was the shame? The shame that he'd talked about in the book before, about being just overcome by the poison of Saruman through Wormtongue and just letting his kingdom come to rot. What is the shame that he avoided through this process? Was it just a glorious death? Did he just ride out in the same way that that Denethor wanted to go out in a burning pyre?
Yeah, no.
For me, I think it is he was willing to sacrifice his life to the protection of the future, the protection of his child had already died, actually, Theodred, but to the continuation of Rohan and Éomer and Éowyn.
Yeah, I think the shame that he maybe was worried about feeling or felt before, and the way that he was able to ride into that battle, it's putting death in the proper place or perspective. That we were reading quotes about this earlier, you read a good one, but it's that whether we die an ignominious death or whether it's in the last great charge and defeating some enemy, like that death in its proper place, what matters is that on our way to that path, which we all are destined for, that you are serving and sacrificing for good, which even if, I think we all know that even if evil wins, even if Sauron won and takes over Middle-earth, good doesn't stop existing. Evil, as Lewis says, is a perversion of what good is. Good will still exist. And so if there's only one thing left, if your son has died, your line is over, your kingdom's done, you can still fight for good all the way to the end when there is no hope and end and die. and you can know that you were pushing forward the thing that will exist eternally. That's
Right.
the thought that I was
Yeah, exists eternally. I mean, you're looking forward. It's the exact opposite of Denethor, and it looks so similar. They both have this Norse desire for the glorious death. One's for one's own glory, and one's for a glory that transcends oneself.
Yes.
And Théoden really, after having gone through that stupor of age and pitiful despair under Saruman's spell, is resolute to live for something even greater than Rohan, greater than himself. There is honor in dying while doing great deeds. But that doesn't mean that death itself is honorable. It's not for the death. It's not even letting death deter you. And what Denethor, at the exact same time that that's happening, is doing is trying to make sure that nobody takes away his glorious death for him. He's lost all hope. In the same way, I think of the character Lieutenant Dan, in Forrest Gump.
You ain't got no legs.
There's a lot of Denethor in Lieutenant Dan before, and even why he's upset that he didn't die like the rest of his family, right?
Well, I would just jump in with Denethor, because he was looking in the stone. He was too great to be subdued by it. But what Sauron was able to do was to slowly bring despair by continuing to show him the might of Mordor. And how comprehensive and deep evil really is and can be. And that's what turned Denethor's heart inward to the greatest thing we can do is just burn.
Think of this with our conversation about truth and what it means to tell the truth, and whether or not we're just popping bubbles or whether we're telling the truth to heal or to purge or whatever the truth is needed to do. The palantír did not lie to Denethor. It showed him truth from a singular perspective. It showed him the rival of the ships of the corsairs of Umbar at exactly the time that would have been the death knell for the battle at the Pelennor fields. It showed him the capture of this halfling. It showed all these things that supposedly their whole cause depended on failing. And we as readers, we know, you don't understand. Sam took the ring. You don't understand. Aragorn commandeered that fleet. He's arriving. It's the reinforcement. It's not another wave of onslaught. It's this. You're given half truths. The Benjamin Franklin line: half a truth is often a great lie. Think of how often our truth to harm or our truth to hurt is a just truth. It's a truth, not like justice, but it's a truth that just tells you a singular perspective that is used as a weapon to harm instead of as a hand to heal. And that's where, do we need to explain the illusion of what a palantír is in our modern time, giving us the news of sorrows across the world to get you to hate your neighbor?
Yeah, they're usually not lying. Well, they're doing the best lie.
Yeah, no, the palantír is a step up.
Yeah.
The palantír is an upgrade from our media sources who are also willing to lie to us. Yeah. But it's at least it's not the truth, but it's the worst part of the truth. The truth in exactly the place where it will do the most harm. That's the way that the NICE used the truth, in the way that it would do harm. And that's the way Sauron used the truth and poisoned the mind of Denethor to the point where he was willing to kill his own son just so he could prove that his source of information is the right one. I think we're not going to be able to get to...
I think we just got to keep going. Who cares? If it's a long episode.
Okay.
We do need to get to, you promised you were going to be heroic in having a certain discussion that, are you at the back of the...
No, see, I'm doing the Aragorn thing where I'm like waiting 87 years to get to the point where I'm going to do this Paths of the Dead type bravery and talk about the which way Western woman idea. We brought up Mulan in the past, and the cartoon version of Mulan is she's full of imperfections, and she's got the wrong ideas, and she's doing things, and because she does it, there is good that comes from it, right? Éowyn kills the Witch King of Angmar. And part of this process of her denying the role that was allotted to her, she's seeking out glory that has been presented to her as a shield maiden of Rohan, and seeing these glorious deeds and not wanting to be caged up. Who can't empathize with that, right? And she is somebody who is obviously brave and noble. Aragorn sees that. Here's a line I do want to bring up briefly just while we're talking about this. Few other griefs amid the ill chances of this world have more bitterness and shame for a man's heart than to behold the love of a lady so fair and brave that cannot be returned. We know why it can't be returned from Aragorn. I don't think it's evil for Éowyn to be seeking that from him, to be seeking his rescue. He is a healing king after all. But her idea of a solution to her woes is something that will not satisfy even if she got it. I can't even say that it's not noble. Of course it's noble. She rode off with the Rohirrim. Everything that we heard in that audio clip, she was an integral part of. In fact, she's the reason that whole triumphant speech had triumph that followed. And it still doesn't satisfy her. She gains everything that she wanted as a woman in the shadows of the glory of honorable men. I think it is wrong to conclude that's what women should be, because we see in her, and we'll continue to hear her story, if you try to attain the honor allotted to other people's lives or positions, there's a difference between this and Pippin and Merry going into battle when they're totally not cut out for it. They're not seeking the honor of a warrior, but if they were, it probably wouldn't have worked out for them. They were seeking to do what they were called on to do, even if it was above their station. And that's different than trying to do something that you were not called to do because you envy a certain aspect of another person's allotment. And it's not dishonorable. It just won't satisfy. And as a woman, her seeking the glory that is, and you could debate whether it should be allotted to only men. I'm of the opinion that it should. I think men should go into battle and women should not. That's where I am. That's where Tolkien is. And he still doesn't withhold that glory from her. That's not why. It's not because women can't do glorious things in battle. Even hobbits can. It's not because she isn't capable. It's because the satisfaction will be in line with the gifts and the promises that you have been given. You don't need more than what you have been given. You don't need to pretend to be somebody else. You don't need to try to take a roundabout way to get to your goal. Your goal needs to be in line with who you are. God is not asking you to be more than a man. He's asking you to be a man. And then something will happen. If your idea of glory is so confined, like for Éowyn, what she wants, she has Amdir. She has this goal. She wants this glory. She wants to live usefully in a way that has been demonstrated all around her. It's a noble goal, but she's not going to be able to have the hope unlooked for. She will not be able to be what she needs to be until she accepts who she is. And we get a great example in her because she attains all of it. Which way, Western women? Who am I to say what's fair? But of the plights of our time, it feels like women might be playing a more important role than men. I haven't gone to battle, and it doesn't seem like there's a battle on the horizon. Your fingers crossed, I guess. But the future of our whole civilization depends on women. It depends on children being raised virtuously and children existing. And that's a role that falls on women far more than it falls on men. If the future has brightness, if there is something to hope for, women trying to live in the ways that success has been defined through the lens of men will not get them there.
Where do you think men and women are going to get this instruction now? If you like for your daughter, where are you pointing her towards?
Oh, Jesus. That's not just a euphemistic expression. No. No, I mean literally.
I know I missed the first. I was like, wow.
The family is the stewardship. The family is the stewardship of all of our lives. And if we keep looking beyond our families for glory, if we keep looking beyond teaching our children in our homes for somebody else to do it, they will. And everybody has a role. And if we don't play that role, even poorly, like, I'm not the best dad. My kids don't need the best dad as much as they just need a dad that's there, that's present. Anybody can be present. I can be present with my kids. I can put my effort and my ambition to them, but I also have other duties to provide and protect. And sometimes that takes me out of the bounds of the walls of my own home. It's a different call to women. And this is going contrary to our modern culture and mores. A place for women is with their family as a child rearer, instructor, teacher, nurturer. If not you, somebody else. Now you could decide that that's an allotment that you don't want. I understand. My allotment, I don't even know what it is. It seems kind of pathetic sometimes. And I understand what it's like to want somebody else's life. That's not what your kids need or deserve. They need parents playing the role and the gender role appropriate to each one of them.
Which I know you're in lockstep with me on this, but like also Éowyn had the battle of Gondor not gone well, and it would have arrived at her front door, and the only ones left were the women and the children, she would have led the charge.
That's right.
So for single moms, for people who are in economic circumstances that demand a different type of reality or experience for a time or whatever that looks like this is not in any way to belittle or like, I want them to know that we, just like we speak in ideals, Christ called us to be perfect and has tried to instruct us. How do we build our homes to be the kingdom of heaven on earth? How do we raise these families? But who can deny that if we have a society of more mothers who took their calling, their gift, their birthright to be mothers and to have children and to raise them and teach them, that if we had more of that happening in our society, that we would not be in a better place. And if we had more fathers who saw their duty to provide and protect and to be fathers and to go out and make sure that they did whatever was necessary to create that home so that mothering and child rearing can take place, like, come at me, bro. Like, tell me how that doesn't lead us to a better better place.
And our modern palantirs will tell women of the burden that children are. And it's not a lie, but it's leaving out an important half of that truth. So it's becoming more and more obvious and apparent in our time that the attack is actually not an attack against the honor of men. It's definitely an attack against the honor of women. And I would just think, I don't have to deal with that. My wife does. I see it in her, and I respect and admire her ability to go with that difficult, unfair, however you want to call it, because nothing in life is fair. And from whatever perspective, from the red perspective, your life's unfair. And from the blue perspective, somebody's life is unfair because yours is better. And if you can't see that we're all playing our roles where we're standing, if one of the writers of Rohan came up and tried to take Théoden's role, it would have been inappropriate.
Yeah.
Aragorn's role is for Aragorn. It's not a place for Faramir to take. And Faramir, when he's healed, the first thing he says to Aragorn is, "I'm here. What do you want me to do?" And he yields to the masculine authority with stewardship over him. And we are all feminine in comparison to the masculinity of our God. That means we all have a context in which we need to yield and not look to other people's lives with envy and jealousy as a way to attain honor for ourselves, because the real honor is in Him for our children. And women have actually more direct access to that aspect of stewardship than men do.
Yeah, that makes me think about who I feel called to yield to in my life outside of God, outside of the Savior, and why. And it's very contextual as far as like what parts of my life that relates to in that. But yeah, that's super interesting. I like it.
That I don't know if my cowardice will let me talk anymore about that, but we'll see how much I keep in the editing process.
Well done. Way to be brave. I mean, good episode to end trying to do the thing that you feel is brave. This one right here is the one to do it. So if you have more.
Now I just have to go and
I cleared my morning.
Live out my pontifications by respecting my wife and helping my children.
All right. Anything you're going to feel like you're laying up at night regretting about
definitely.
not talking lots?
Definitely. We didn't even talk about Shelob last episode. But I think there's enough. We don't have to talk about all the things. So,
but this one we might. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being in our book club. If you like the show, please leave a 5-star review. And if you'd like to contact us with questions, comments, criticisms, or corrections, you can send us an email or voice memo at bookclub@mountaineer.media, MTNAIR.
In our next episode, we'll be talking about our experience in Book 6 of The Lord of the Rings, which is the second half of The Return of the King. We promise we'll come back to C.S. Lewis, but in the meantime, check out our back catalog of episodes where we talk about your favorite C.S. Lewis fiction. See ya. Bye-bye.
The C.S. Lewis Book Club is sponsored by the Bowsaker Academy Self-Governance Initiative.
Because no one learns better than kids.